So you may have seen over the last few days that a clip from Piers Morgan's interview with Jeremy Corbyn went pretty viral on Twitter. In the clip, Morgan repeatedly asks the former Labour leader whether he believes Hamas are a terror group or not, to which Corbyn repeatedly refuses to give either a yes or no answer.
Can we have a discussion?
Can you call them a terror group, Jeremy?
Can we have a discussion?
Can you call them a terror group?
Is it possible to have a rational discussion
with you? Are you prepared to call Hamas a terror group?
Is it possible to have a rational discussion with you? Is it possible? Come on, answer that question.
You can't, can you?
You answer it.
No, it's my show. You answer my question.
Well,
are Hamas a terror group?
Listen, can I...
Are they a terror group?
Piers, can I speak?
Answer the question.
Can I speak?
Are they a terror group?
Piers,
no, Len, no.
If you let me speak...
Are they a terror group?
If you'll let me speak, I'll say something.
Go on, then.
A ceasefire means both sides...
You said that. Are they a terror group?
Listen, I said that because
are they a terror group?
Part of the process.
Are they a terror group?
Can we go...
Why can't you say it?
Piers, can we go through what ought to be happening?
Just answer my question.
Why do you think
are Hamas a terror group
in the world are calling for a ceasefire?
Are Hamas a terror group?
Come on, answer that. Answer me.
No, it's not your show.
You've got so many opinions.
Why should I answer yours when you won't answer mine?
Why do you give out your opinions all day and every day?
Are Hamas?
You don't like it
are
when
Hamas
pushes it back on you.
Are Hamas a terror group? Yes or no?
You won't like it when somebody pushes back on you. What I've said is...
I've asked you two questions. Should Hamas stay in power and are they a terror group? You're refusing to answer either of them. That is very telling. And you wonder,
it's not very
why people think you had a problem with Jewish people.
At all.
Right?
What is very telling is your inability to keep quiet for 30 seconds to allow anybody to answer a question.
On my show, I ask people questions.
You shout at people.
Normally, they answer them.
You shout at people.
No, only when they won't answer the question.
No, you shout at people all the time.
You've deliberately not answered my question.
Hamas are the militant Palestinian organisation who were responsible for the killing of around 1,200 people near the Israel-Gaza border on October the 7th. An atrocity that was met with immediate and devastating retaliation by Israel that has so far killed approximately 10,000 Palestinians, including around 4,000 children. However, the question as to whether Hamas are in fact a terror group isn't actually as black and white as Piers Morgan and the headline-chasing tabloid media would have you believe. So are Hamas actually a terrorist organisation? The question isn't just as simple as yes or no. Because whilst the UK and the US governments recognise Hamas as a terrorist organisation, many media outlets, including the BBC, refuse to label them as such. So in a video article published last month, the BBC's John Simpson explained that terrorism is a loaded word, which people use about an outfit they disapprove of morally. It's simply not the BBC's job to tell people who to support and who to condemn, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. So he goes on to say, we regularly point out that the British and other governments have condemned Hamas as a terrorist organisation, but that's their business. We also run interviews with guests and quote contributors who describe Hamas as terrorists. The key point is that we don't say it in our voice. Our business is to present our audience with the facts and let them make up their own minds. So Simpson also points out that the BBC used exactly the same principle with the IRA, stating that it was hard to keep that principle going when the IRA was bombing Britain and killing innocent civilians, but we did. There was huge pressure from the government of Margaret Thatcher on the BBC and on individual reporters like me about this, especially after the Brighton bombing where she just escaped death and so many other innocent people were killed and injured. But we held the line, and we still do to this day. Whilst there's no internationally recognised definition of the word terrorism, it's widely accepted to mean the use of violence or the threat of violence by a non-state actor in order to achieve a political aim. And whilst this definition clearly applies to the likes of the IRA and ISIS, who are non-state actors, it's widely disputed as to whether Hamas are in fact a non-state actor. And this is because Palestinian politics is incredibly divided, with two main organisations, Hamas and Fatah, laying claim to different parts of the Palestinian territories. The biggest political difference between the two parties is that Fatah accept Israel's right to exist, whilst Hamas refuse to. But in 2006, tensions boiled over between the two factions when Hamas narrowly beat Fatah in nationwide elections. Elections which were widely recognised as free and fair by around 900 independent monitors and the United States government themselves. However, following the closely fought election, the two sides failed to reach a compromise on power sharing, and they effectively went to war with each other. And ever since, Hamas have ruled over the Gaza Strip, whilst Fatah, under the leadership of President Mahmoud Abbas, have controlled the West Bank. Despite the complicated political situation, Palestine was officially accepted into the United Nations as an observer state in 2012. But currently, only 138 UN member states actually officially recognise Palestine as a legitimate state, whilst 55 others, including the UK and the US, refuse to. And for context, whilst Israel was officially accepted into the United Nations as a full member state in 1949, a total of 28 UN member states still to this day don't formally recognise it as a legitimate state. In addition to these arguments, there's also the fact that the Palestinian people, like any occupied people around the world, have the legal right to resist their occupiers. This is because international law enshrines the right of any occupied people to resist their colonizers via any means necessary, which includes armed struggle. So even according to the Geneva Convention, much of what Hamas do could be construed as exercising their right to freedom and self-determination. And this exact same principle is why the West is currently arming Ukraine to the teeth against Russia's illegal invasion of their country. However, in intentionally massacring innocent civilians on October the 7th, as Hamas did, they clearly committed a truly horrific act. But, legally speaking, it's an act that can either be considered terrorism or a war crime. It should also be noted that the British government have a long history of both supporting and opposing equally barbaric resistant movements to Hamas. For instance, believe it or not, it wasn't so long ago that Margaret Thatcher and her mates in the media were labelling freedom fighters such as Nelson Mandela as terrorists, whilst simultaneously backing the jihadist Mujahideen, a forerunner to the Taliban, in Afghanistan. And the difference being that whilst Mandela's cause opposed British interests in South Africa, the Mujahideen were allied with our fight against the communist Soviet Union. The whole situation between Israel and Palestine is clearly incredibly complex, but the question as to whether or not Hamas are terrorists is basically just a game of semantic name-calling that only serves to further inflame a highly fraught situation. And it's a tactic that's clearly designed to try and delegitimize the Palestinian cause and further the interests of the opposing sides. Because if you're going to label the killing of around 1,200 Israelis by Hamas as terrorism, then surely the killing of 10,000 Palestinian civilians, including thousands of children, by Israel, as they have done over the past few weeks, is surely something even worse. Does committing war crimes by cutting off their water, their food, their electric, not terrorise the Palestinian people? Does indiscriminately bombing hospitals, schools, and even UN refugee centres across Gaza not terrorise the Palestinian people? And does bulldozing Palestinian homes and continually stealing land in the West Bank, in clear contravention of international law, not terrorise the Palestinian people? Of course it does, yet only one side are labelled as terrorists. The fact is that to the tabloid media, it's just a game. They don't care about peace, and they certainly don't care about telling the truth. All they're interested in is grabbing cheap headlines and asserting their dominance over the narrative. And when it comes to the UK government, they clearly couldn't care less about actually doing the right thing, as our history shows. Because maintaining Israel as an ally allows the West an invaluable strategic outpost in the oil-rich Middle East, and also as a geopolitical bargaining chip amongst the region's crucial naval trading routes. Britain literally oversaw the creation of the carnage we see today between Israel and Palestine, but despicably, what's clear is that both our media and our government have absolutely no interest in resolving the mess that they caused.